Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you a quick way of creating an ambient soundscape in just 7 steps using the Sonicware Texture Lab. Alright, so step 1, start with a sample of a single note. It doesn't have to be anything special, just a nice foundational tone that you can play chromatically. Step 2, set the sequencer pattern length to 64 steps, or in other words 4 bars spread across 1, 2, 3, 4 pages on the sequencer. Step 3, create a chord progression with 1 chord for each bar. So going into recording mode, start on the first step of the bar, I'm going to put in a chord and tie it all the way across the entire bar. And with auto step on, I've automatically progressed to the next page where I'm going to put in my next chord in the same way. Now we're on page 3. Here's my third chord for the third bar. And now our fourth and final bar. So here's my chord progression, nothing very special about it or the chords, just make sure you only use a maximum of 3 notes per chord because of what we're going to do next, which is step 4, record a melody on top of the chord progression. I would recommend doing this in an octave above or below your chord progression to create some space between the two. I'm going to go an octave up, and then you could do this manually, step by step, or you could do it live, which is what I am going to do. Okay, that wasn't perfect, but that'll work. Doesn't have to be Beethoven, just something to work with. All right, now step 5. Increase your tempo to 160 beats per minute. Then go function record settings to set your recording source to pattern. And then we're going to resample our sequenced sample. And if you do the math, well, 64 steps at 160 beats per minute perfectly fits the 6-second sample limit of the Texture Lab, which means we're going to end up having a seamless loop sample of our sequence. Like so. All right, now let's save the sample. And now we can reset everything. Okay, so now I'm back in an empty pattern. I have our resampling loaded up as the sample, and I'm going to turn the reverb all the way down just so we can hear things clearly. And now it's time for step 6. So you're going to hold down the hold button and then press at least 1 key on the keyboard. I would recommend the middle C, this guy right here. And I'm going to turn down the volume so you can hear me talk. Okay, so now our sample is playing on an infinite loop. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take our blend knob and turn that all the way to the right so that we only have the granular side of the blend. And then we're going to take our speed knob and turn it all the way to the left to make it play back as slowly as possible. Turn up the volume so you can hear it. And now, to make things nice and smooth and ethereal, we're going to take our grain density, turn that all the way to the right. Might help to play around with the grain shape a little bit. And let's bump up the reverb now. Okay, now step 7. This is where the real magic begins. We are going to explore the soundscape. And I guess this is optional because you could just sit back and relax and let your sample play out like this. But there are so many other things you can do to take yourself or your listeners on a journey through your soundscape. For example, you can press the hold button and layer in the same sample but an octave up. And we could go also an octave down. And you could also layer in fifths. So starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Press hold. Enter that as well. The next thing we can do is we can start playing around with our knobs, which sounds a little funny to say, especially if you live in the UK, and get all sorts of different sounds out of this thing that way. some less pleasant than others. And then my favorite thing to do is to take the length knob and turn that all the way down, so that we shorten the sample playback window to as small as it can possibly be, and it's almost as if we've taken our sample and we've frozen it in time. And then what we can start doing is we can scan through it with the position knob. Just slowly moving through it at our own leisurely pace. And as we go through it, think of it as a soundscape, as something analogous to a landscape, where at any moment you can pause and explore what's there by messing around with the other knobs. And remember that you have lots of other options too. For example, you have various filters. Filter sweeps are always nice. You have modulators. It can be nice to modulate the pitch just a tiny bit. To get an almost tape-like warble. And then once you've done some manipulations, you can move on to the next scene in your soundscape. Or you could go in the opposite direction and give up having control over the pace by randomizing the position. There's just so much to explore, a whole world of sound in just a 6-second sample. Anyway, I'm going to put a bunch of extra notes in the description to help keep this video short. I hope you like this new, quicker format that I'm trying out, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day, have a great time exploring, and goodbye for now.